I was working on my house and I decided to stop in order to answer this question that I got, which I'm really grateful for. And that was regarding the 3D house systems, specifically 3D Campiness. Um, Thanks to Eric Duran for that question, because I actually hadn't worked with the 3D house systems, nor had I used Astrolog for, man, it might have even been a decade. So I actually had to crack open Astrolog, download the latest version, and do some experimenting with it. And I forgot how how Astrolog was, just in terms of how it worked. But certainly, I learned a lot from this experiment. I was like, okay, let me try this 3D system. Uh, as with any house system, there tends not to be a right or wrong. House systems in general have a lot to do with how you see things. And so, for example, is there any merit to the equal house system? Yes. If you're someone who basically says, each of my areas of life are filed away with a corresponding kind of organized energy, subconsciously, it mirrors the signs. And you say, when I go to work, this is work. When I sleep, this is sleep. When I explore, this is the nature of exploration. If your file cabinets for areas of life have a character which you deem synonymous with the actual character descriptors, those are the signs, then equal is perfect. And that just goes to show that even though we don't use equal, we typically use Placidus or something like that. I use Pollock Page. They have a lot to do with just your own kind of framework for stuff. So the 3D system is really interesting because it has implications for tying astrology to actual astronomy. In regular astrology, we just use the flat 2D chart and we ignore declination. Essentially, we're looking at projections onto the ecliptic. And so we're here with our equator, and then we've got the ecliptic, which is the path that the sun takes. And then we've got all these stars kind of scattered everywhere, or asteroids scattered everywhere, and we're pushing them onto the ecliptic, and we're getting our astrology chart. It's like looking at shadows, but math-wise, they're projections. So, and that's perfectly fine. I'm going to speculate. Let me warn you. I'm going to speculate on what the 3D house systems do. I have no idea officially. It's not mainstream astrology. It's just it's one of those things which is still kind of in the corner where the research is concerned. But so here's my speculation. When we're dealing with coordinate systems, what defines an axis typically, unless you're dealing with things like oblique axes, are the normal orthogonal axes. Orthogonal means that moving along in one dimension does not affect another dimension. And so in XYZ, you can move along X, and it will not affect Y, and it will not affect Z either. When we move over to spherical coordinates, we've got a radial component that just tells you how far out you are. And it does not affect the angular component, which tells you where on the horizon circle we are. And that doesn't affect the elevation component. No, neither of them do. And so what we typically do in 2D astrology is we ignore declination, right? And we just smash it onto the whole horizon world, and that's it. Now, we also ignore distance, but we kind of don't. Distance is what defines the band, right? So at some point, you're in the Mars band, where Mars lives, and it's got Mars energy, and all the moons and asteroids and stuff around Mars are going to tend to have Mars-type stuff. Namely, the earlier asteroids that were found there along the Mars-Jupiter belt. And so they're going to have a Mars kind of Scorpio-type thing. By the way, remember, I use Mars as the ruler of Scorpio, just kind of based on astronomy, like distance and stuff. But anyway, you move farther out, you're in the Jupiter band. And then you move even farther out, you're on the Saturn band. So distance is implied in the kind of asteroid that you're looking at, what it does. Then you got weirdos like Chiron, which have this real eccentric kind of orbit, and their meaning oscillates between the Saturn meaning and the Uranus meaning for its aphelion and perihelion. Anyway, all that is flattened, and we're not looking at declination. And so you can go into Astrolog and take your regular radix chart and go over to graphics and just draw the chart sphere. And it produces this really neat kind of thing, which tells you more or less where the asteroids and objects and all that stuff were. Um, like I said, this is something that we normally ignore, but what we're asking is, does it mean anything? And again, your house system is meaningful if it lines up with how you organize things. So, what I did is I established a rough estimate for all of my 1,000 asteroids just to kind of see whether or not the clustering tends to have any meaning in my own chart. And this is how you determine whether you like a house system, by the way. You go into your regular chart and then you use something like, Campanus or Morinus or Placidus or whatever. I use Pollock Page, that is topocentric, um, just because it lines up with how I see things. I like things to work all the time, or at least I like to think they work all the time. And Pollock Page was one of the systems that works even at the North Pole. Um, so anyway, but that was a personal choice, and you can see my reasoning was embedded in the house system that I chose. But this 3D system does kind of funny things. For example, in my regular chart, Sun and Pluto aren't next to each other. I'll turn this off, turn off 3D houses. You see what happens, right? You can see that the Sun and Pluto are about 20 degrees apart. And here, the Moon and Ceres are about 15 degrees apart. But then when I turn on the 3D system, then projections are basically moving things over. And that's because Pluto had a kind of high declination, but on the ecliptic, it was basically doing this and then this, and then when we projected it back down, it got closer to the sun. Very neat. Was this meaningful? It was, and that's actually why I've picked up this recording. So, um, basically, let me just cut to the chase. Different house systems spell different frameworks for how you look at your world. The 3D system introduces declination in there, and it when I looked at my own chart and I asked whether it lines up with reality, I got that there was an instance of my experience where my Sun and my Pluto are together. Where was it? It was in the realm of reflection. From what I could tell, the 3D houses seem to show an aftermathy kind of effect. It seems to be the aftermath of events. In other words, when I'm long past a certain kind of event, and I reflect, man, I really did win in that, or I really did lose in that, or I really did enjoy that. Um, the 3D house system seems to be better at that kind of thought, much more than the regular 2D house system. However, normally when we're looking at the chart and we look at the 2D house system, we're like, oh yeah, I totally do it that way. I totally am in the moment, right? We don't think about that. But I totally do it that way. I totally experience it that way in these aspects and these angles or whatever. Okay, cool. When it's over, years later, and you just kind of reflect on it, I'm not going to challenge you to try to read your 2D chart because frankly, you're going to be up a creek trying to find how to implement the 3D stuff. Not a lot of programs or whatever do it, so you won't be able to find this. You can find it in Astrolog, but you have to do some real tricky stuff to get your 1,000 asteroids and all that other to produce something like this. If anybody knows, please post it in the comments or whatever, and knows how to do the 3D Campanus system for lots and lots and lots and lots of asteroids. Please let me know because I'm new to this and I was just kind of checking it out. Yeah, but it has an aftermathy kind of reflective quality to it. And while I've been working on my house here, I've had a lot of time to think about, just life from the past few years and things like that. And I find that I'm actually seeing the world more in terms of this 3D system. Now, when I walk out the door and start engaging folks, it's more of the 2D chart. Why would that be? Again, here's more speculation. Um, in one of my books, I think it's Laurentia, but in Laurentia, I have all kinds of theories about all kinds of things. But in Laurentia, I talk about what possibly makes our gravitational systems go from spherical to discal to spherical to discal. So, for example, Earth is a sphere, solar system is a disk, but the Oort cloud is a sphere, but the Milky Way is a disk. And like, why is it doing that? Um, I actually might get up and try to find some props for that. Um, let me pause this and see if I can find why this might be. I'm actually quite upset that I can't find the bag that has my little spheres in them because I bought them for demonstration purposes. But anyway, bottom line is that when we're doing stuff, when you have an event, it radiates out. The singular point, boom, goes like this, and its effect goes out. So pretend that this is a thing, that there's a central energy in the center, and it goes boom, and then it spreads out, right? So naturally, when an energy fires, it goes out in sphere if it's not disturbed on any sides, right? It just shines, it burns, or does whatever it does. It emits. Now you're gonna have to humor me and pretend that this is a sphere. It's this is the same as this because this is all I got. All I got is tape, like a bunch of tape. So pretend that this is the orange ball that you were just looking at because I don't have enough of those. What happens if you try to pack a bunch of these in, right? If you've tried to pack spheres in, then you know that they obey this kind of um, okay. So they I had to cut there, jump cut. They obey this kind of triangular thing, right? So if you were trying to pack three spheres in, this is what you get. But what happens is that now suppose that there's another sphere that wants to enter this picture. Okay, cool. Now we have a kind of tetrahedron there, right? So that takes care of the top. But what about the bottom, right? Because if I try to hook on another piece of tape, another roll of tape, which I don't have, so I'm going to go back to the original sphere. If I try to hook this on, then it goes like this. But you can see there's a problem, right? The problem is that the 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 gray tape and the orange tape aren't right next to each other. They're kind of fighting for the center of this. And so, really, the symmetry in this system, even if these were all spheres, would be here. It would be rotational symmetry. But it doesn't have it doesn't have the same kind of all around symmetry when you're squeezing things in this way. And so what happens is you get a sphere, but you're trying to pack spheres in, you get this this five system going, right? You can pack the best you can do like this is with five. And that's going to have implications for some other thing that I discovered while working with the 3D system. Anyway, bottom line is that if you're living in the center of all of this, you've got three options around here which are dictating, they're closer to you, they're surrounding you, they're immediate. So you're basically living in a disk. So you're like, well, what does that have to do with the 2D chart? Well, simple. Um, when we're engaging the normal world, and again, this is speculation, but follow me here. When we're engaging the normal world, we're normally engaging it along the horizon. So I'm going to go to that place over there on the horizon. I'm going to talk to that person over there. I'm going to work that job over there. But most of what we do is pulled by what happens at eye level. And sitting on the surface of the earth, most of what we do is what happens in the same kind of shell band region, right? This is eye level to us. This is vertical, right? Or in the ground is vertical. And so I, I I'm I'm not going to say I'm blown away, but I'm really pleased with the 3D system, because what the 3D system does is it says, okay, by the way, instead of being immediately pulled, gravitationally squished or shell-wise squished or whatever, um, by eye level, you're now going to consider what is at a certain kind of height given a particular angle, right? Uh, so you say, well, why do I care about this? The idea is as follows: if you can find some way to get your 3D chart reliably produced, and if somebody knows how to do this, please put it in the comments, because Astrolog is rough trying to get all the 1,000 in there. I think you have to script it, if I recall. Um, but if there's a way that I can get all of my 1,000 asteroids in a 3D Campanus chart or something, then I mean I can really look at that chart's reality. Um, Remember, it's so what the 3D system has kind of shown me at first glance, because I've never worked with it before, is that it's got this aftermathy reflective effect, and it tends to show how you see events long after those events are over. Now, normally we don't do this. Normally we're looking at the 2D chart, and the 2D chart says, oh, yeah, I totally do it that way. I totally engage in that way. And you do when you're thinking about it and you're in the moment. But after all the dust is settled and everything, and you have time to reflect, you're like, man, I asked for that, but I never really get that to happen. I have this kind of aim in my 2D chart, but at the end of the day, when I reflect, when I add the reflective dimension, which normally is gravitationally just squished out of possibility, right? Or thinking about what I was showing you earlier. Um, it's cute to say that I could get to any of these places as easily as I could get to that place, but it's just not true, right? So the 2D chart, for the most part, is saying, okay, well, this is what you have a high likelihood of engaging. But if you're ever able to get past your kind of band, the limitations of your body or gravity or whatever, and you can actually fly and go up here or whatever, you'll find that declination matters a lot more. Um, it's really cool, and I think that as the field evolves and we start having more studies of this, we can really look at not necessarily how we would be if we could fly. I mean, but I'll save that for another recording, because that's a possibility, right? Or swimming, or projecting yourself onto another planet where the gravity is different, all that kind of stuff. What kind of birth charts will we have on Neptune when it's kind of a soupy sky that we're floating through in our ships or whatever? Are we going to use 2D? I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, that's future stuff. But this chart has been very interesting, because the 3D chart is what things look like, to me at least, in the aftermath. Now, if you're curious, this is what I did in order to get these estimates. So first of all, this is my 3D chart, which I'm showing. If I go to settings, house settings, and turn off 3D houses, look at that. Pluto, this is my normal chart, by the way. Pluto and the sun are 20 degrees apart. Ceres and the moon are 15 degrees apart. But when I go to the 3D system, it squishes them together. And what you do, as with any house system, is you ask, is there a reality in your life or in the events that you're studying where these things hold? And the answer was yes. It was that aftermath effect that I noted. Um, but like I said, Astrolog is a little bit rough when it comes to getting all your asteroids in there. What I did was I took my regular table of asteroids here, right here, and I took the position, and I also kept the declination column. And I don't know where oh yeah, this is the position. And then I believe this is the declination column, but it's converted to decimal. And then I used just a rough formula. Please don't quote me on this formula. Find the people who made Astrolog who know what the actual formula is for 3D houses. But because I didn't know what that formula was, I was just trying to come up with some math to approximate this kind of thing, right? And the math that I came up with was this function here. Let me zoom in. Here it is. Okay. What this is the position. Let's have that at I-38. At I-338, that's the position, right? Plus the quantity declination, that's M338, right? Declination times cosine of the position minus your vertex. 164.3 is where my vertex is. And minus the vertex times pi over 180, all modded by 360. This was the rough formula that I used in order to kind of simulate that 3D chart, just to get a general idea of what clustered together. And for the most part, it works. If I go into this place, I can see that this formula actually does put Ceres near the moon and all that fancy transformation. It's not the correct formula, but if you're just kind of playing around with it, there you go. Put that one in your 1,000 asteroids and look at what it clusters on. And so now, let's say I want to go for one of my favorite asteroids, which is, well, not my favorite. Let's go for a mean asteroid, number 911, Agamemnon, because it's ruthlessness. What I did is I went into Astrolog, and here's the folder that I downloaded. I dumped in all my ephemeris files, just all of them, from Starfisher, from astro.com or wherever you get them. Just I put them in the Astro folder so that I had the option of adding them here. And then I go into settings. And if you know another way to do this and you like doing it that way, cool. Because I hadn't used Astrolog in basically a decade, I was just trying to find a quick way to get asteroids to pop up, custom asteroids to pop up. So I went to settings, went to planetary moons, object customization, and I started customizing things in here, right? So the next one that I haven't customized is Hydra. I'm going to try to make Hydra look like Agamemnon. So I'm just going to call it Agamemnon. And that is asteroid number 911. And I'll click OK. Remember, it's replacing Hydra. So then I go to settings, planetary moons, moon restrictions. When they're checked, it says don't display them. So I'm going to uncheck Hydra. Can you see that? I don't know if you can. Let me see what I can do about that. There you go. I'm going to uncheck Hydra right here. And then click OK. And look at that. See where Agamemnon is located. That's funny because in my normal chart, Agamemnon is right here on this side of the sun. So if I go to turn off my 3D houses here, you can see where Agamemnon normally is, right? And yeah, Astrolog is drawing a little bit funny because Agamemnon's normally not that close. But anyway, this is what you get. And so you can go in and compare your 3D system to your 2D system and ask yourself whether it's actually giving you more of this kind of reflective effect. I mean, that's what I got when I was studying it. And it seemed to make not physics sense. I won't say physics because this is all speculation, right? But it seemed to make experiential sense. If you consider that our normal days are spent interacting with the horizon, and it's only when we add that normal axis that doesn't affect anything, and it's the axis of looking at all the possibilities along this particular band, regardless of radius, regardless of what the band is, what does it take for us to engage what's up there? We don't fly yet, but in order for us to do it for right now, we have to stop and think, of what's actually up there. And so when you introduce the 3D houses and you start looking at the world through the lens of your sphere. Let me see if I can move this around so you can see it. I don't have a good way of zooming these yet, so you have to bear with me here. But yeah, you can look at this chart and kind of see if it means anything to you, and if so, what does it mean? Very fascinating. I think the future of astrology, to the extent that people start programming this more often and producing it more often in tables, uh, can benefit greatly from having this as a realm of study.